Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I would like to call to order the March 2nd meeting of the Half Moon Bay City Council. For those who are joining us, Council Member Debbie Ruddock will not be able to join us tonight, so there will just be 4 members of the council present. And I would like to have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Here.
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And we can now open the public forum to ask questions about any items that are not on the agenda.
Don't have any hands raised as of yet. I have one now. Okay. David Ablovy, go ahead.
Am I there?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, sorry if you had any idea of the race that this became. Give me 1 second if you would. I'm so sorry. My phone is a new phone and it didn't have Zoom installed on it, which left me a little bit behind. I'm pretty sure most of you have already heard about Sandra Harmon descendants filing suit in federal court today. If you haven't, I would strongly ask you to read the complaint, or more as I read it, the indictment of that night and what followed. Specifically, the complaint alleges that the sheriff's office and deputies failed to follow sheriff's office and your policy regarding body-worn cameras, excuse me, with Deputy Dominguez supposedly forgetting to turn his on, despite being under no time pressure whatsoever before approaching the RV Harmon was in. He failed to wait for backup, despite, again, being under no time or security pressure before charging into an unknown situation that clearly involved a mentally ill individual, placing both her and his life in danger. And then more significantly, he failed to follow the law when Deputy Dominguez fired 3 rounds at Ms. Harmon as he fled in panic before she had done anything threatening. And finally, and perhaps most significantly, he illegally took Ms. Harmon's life when, according to the coroner, Deputy Dominguez fatally shot Ms. Harmon in the back while her arms were held above her head and she was facing away from the officer in attempting to comply with his directives. Then we have the resulting investigation by the DA's office. The DA failed to maintain a chain of custody for all video evidence from the scene that night. Instead, the sheriff's office maintained control of the cameras and never turned the cameras over to the DA's office. The DA didn't get those videos until 18 hours later, as given to them by the sheriff's office, not from the devices themselves. Despite having audio files that covered all portions of the shooting sequence, the DA apparently never looked at them to determine if Dominguez's story about who shot first was true or false, and thus they actively worked to conceal that fact from the public. And finally, despite knowing that log files for all cameras exist under the sheriff's control, the DA is on record stating at the meeting he came to with you guys back, I believe, in August, that they took the sheriff at his word concerning the disposition of the camera at the time of the shooting. That's awe-inspiring to me, that someone could be involved in a homicide and someone would take them at their word that their story was true. That's just incongruous. In any case, the reason I'm speaking tonight is that I can imagine you sitting in your seat, sort of thinking this is no big deal, we're indemnified, it's not gonna be an issue, we've done everything we can. I'd really like to encourage you in the strongest possible terms to reconsider your position. If a city employee did even one of the things that the sheriff's office has done here, they'd be terminated with cause immediately. Yet the agency you hired to be responsible for public safety has shown repeatedly that it cannot be trusted to be transparent and truthful. I don't know where we go from here, but I'm really hoping that you will continue the trend of this council to forward transparency in both policing and government, and you will put some effort into the public safety subcommittee towards finding a solution out of this that is more than just sitting back and saying, okay, we're going to be indemnified. It's all fine. It's not all fine. And I know this isn't your fault, but you are responsible, if that makes any sense. And I hope you will own that responsibility and leave our community, as you typically do, in a better state than you found it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, David.
Okay, we
Next
have
speaker, please.
Crystalline Geet next. Crystalline, go ahead.
Hello. I feel kind of bad following that one because I want to talk about awesomeness. I just wanted to let everybody know that we had our awesomeness awards this past Thursday, celebrating the businesses that did amazing, extraordinary things through 2020. So whether that was pivoting their business to do a new service or do their service in a new way, or helping with funding, all sorts of categories. And so we got to celebrate 20 different businesses in 7 different categories. And so I just wanted to send a shout out if anybody wants to know who walked away with top honors. It's on our social media. And I wanted to thank the city for their support of the awards, and they were also nominated in the Funding It Forward category. And during the nominations process, the city got lots of kudos from members of the public who really saw what you guys did in 2020 and appreciated you for it. So big round of applause for city staff and city council. And we are working on our teacher appreciation party, which is going to be on Thursday, the 11th, and that's our annual fundraiser to help put a little money back into the teachers' pockets for the classroom supplies. This year it's obviously different, so we're doing Hassett Ace Hardware gift cards so that they can replenish their needs through them. But we encourage everybody to donate if they can. And again, we'll be appreciating the teachers for everything that they did through 2020. So lots of shout outs, and thank you so much for everything everybody does.
Thank you, Chrislyn. I think the event went really well, so appreciate it.
I have no other hands raised, Mayor.
Yeah, I don't see any either. Okay, thank you. I will now close the public forum. Public forum is closed, and we will now proceed to proclamations and presentations. And we are fortunate enough to have a guest presentation today from HIP Housing, and representing HIP Housing is Avneet Basi, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm excited to be here. If I could just present my screen, actually. So what we did is we have our calendar. Let me see if I could present the digital version. Can everyone see this?
Yes, we can. Looks good.
Let's do full screen so we can see the. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got the whole thing. Okay. So my name's Avni. I am representing HIP Housing today. I'm the Marketing and Communications Associate for HIP Housing. And on behalf of HIP Housing, I would like to thank the Honorable Mayor and the members, the City Council members of Half Moon Bay for continued support of our organization. As a token of our appreciation and as a reminder of our partnership throughout the year, I'd like to present the Council with HIP Housing's new 2021 calendar. I'll probably be dropping them off like later this week, so you'll be able to get your hands on them. But this is the 19th calendar HIP Housing has created, and it's filled with information on HIP Housing's affordable housing program and showcases the artwork of children throughout San Mateo County. The children are essentially asked to submit a drawing of kind of what they envision as a home, and then they write a quote what home means to them. So 12 winners are selected to create this beautiful calendar this year, and our cover winner, which you see here in January, is actually couldn't be more appropriate. I mean, if you look at the detail, but they got a little COVID, the world is like, their home is like now there's school in it, there's office, there's Netflix. it kind of synthesizes what's going on in her world, what's going in our world, you know. So it's just kind of great this year to see what everyone was, all the kids, how they've been affected. And the drawings have been a little different this year, but they were completely heartwarming. So yeah, so I just wanted to share the calendar with everyone and, you know, just share the word. I'm hoping if you could help us share the word about our programs, especially our home sharing program. For many, home sharing is an amazing opportunity to rent room affordably. With COVID now, more than ever, people are suffering and our programs can help. We hope you could display our calendars proudly and continue to refer people to our programs. We hope this calendar will stand as an important reminder of how essential housing is, especially for everyone, including children. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Avni. These calendars are beautiful. Pictures are absolutely beautiful. Thank you for gifting us these calendars, and thank you for the service that certainly HIP provides to both home seekers and homeowners and people offering a shelter for people over their head.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a great opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's see. Community activities, announcements of community activities and community service. None that I'll mention, but a lot of the activities will be incorporated in a moment in the city manager's update. Before we do that, Catherine, were there any? I don't think there are any recent closed session reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, the council has not met in closed session since the last time we reported out, so nothing to report out this evening.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to city manager's updates, beginning with a COVID-19 update from our
Mayor. Cue up Matthew for the report.
Great. Thanks, Matthew.
Hold on one second, trying to queue it up right now.
And actually, Jessica will start with some information about COVID-19 shelter in place and where things are, and then we'll turn the time over to me.
My apologies. Cue up Jessica for the beginning of the report.
Great. Thanks, Jessica.
Can you all see that, or is it not full screen yet?
It
It's
is
not in
a
presentation mode.
It's not in presentation mode.
It's pretty legible, but
Oh,
Go to slideshow.
there it
on
was.
the top bar.
There it was. Sorry. Now I know how everyone feels with the stress.
it's all right.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
thank you.
Perfect.
You can go to the next slide, Colleen. Thanks. So last week on Tuesday, San Mateo County was moved from the purple tier 1, the most restrictive tier, to red tier, which is substantial spread. And so what that did was allowed our restaurants to open indoors to a 25% capacity. Capacities changed for retail and other shopping centers that had already been open, but at a lower capacity, and allowed for movie theaters to open with limited capacity, as well as gyms. And so a lot of information was sent out about that as far as what can be open and what can't. A few more counties in the Bay Area were moved to the red tier today as well. So we are on the right track toward reopening. Next slide, please, Colleen. And then here is an update on the numbers. The positivity rate is the most significant. It's gone down to 1.7, which is a big improvement from where it was a month ago. So in the vaccination, we have vaccinated 157,000 people in San Mateo County. So that number is going up, and the positivity rate should continue to go down. And Matthew will now go over the vaccine process.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm glad to be with you tonight, council members. Next slide, please, Colleen. You've seen the slide before, just a reminder of who is eligible right now to receive vaccines. We're still in phase 1B of the state's vaccination prioritization process, and that's what the county follows. Phase 1A, which has been in effect since December, started with healthcare workers and residents of long-term care facilities who, the data shows were at extreme risk for negative effects of COVID and the spread of COVID. Phase 1B began a little over a month ago, and that allowed seniors 65 and up, as well as some residents of vulnerable communities that are targeted by the county. And then last Monday, the second portion of phase 1B opened to first responders, those that deal directly with the public in an emergency. So your firefighters and your law enforcement and other emergency responders, food and agriculture workers, which is of important note to us given our workforce here. We have many agricultural workers that are at risk and highly vulnerable in our community. We also have a lot of food workers. We are a tourist-based economy. We have lots of restaurants and stores, and so getting those workers vaccinated, those are individuals who are face-to-face with the public on a very regular basis. That's also a high priority. And then teachers and school staff have also been included in eligibility with the hopes that as they get vaccinated, our schools will be able to reopen soon. Next slide, please. So really exciting times. About a week and a half ago, we were notified by the county that there was a chance that they might be able to bring a mobile vendor to the coast side to start vaccinating individuals at farms. And then last Monday night, we were notified that they would actually have enough vaccines available and time to coordinate and bring multiple walk-up locations on the coast side to allow individuals within those eligibility groups to get vaccinated right here on the coast. And there was a mad scramble among service providers in the city and the county here. And there was a lot of work that went into it. And we're really grateful to Our Lady of the Pillar Catholic Church for allowing the use of their gathering hall for this purpose last week. And really grateful to the county for prioritizing making sure that residents on the coast had access to vaccines. On Thursday and Friday, there was a walk-up clinic hosted at Our Lady of the Pillar, as well as mobile vans, mobile teams going from farm to farm, vaccinating actual farm workers on site. Additionally, in Pescadero, a separate mobile unit was visiting farms there, and there was a site on Saturday at Puente to get other residents of the South Coast vaccinated. All in all, over 1,000 coastsiders were vaccinated through these clinics last week, which of course, we have many more to vaccinate, but I think it's a really important measurement because a lot of the folks that were vaccinated are highly vulnerable. They're folks that have worked day in and day out during COVID to provide for themselves and their families, to make sure we have access to the food, the groceries, and other things that we need in our lives. And so prioritizing them, I think, was really, really important, and making this really accessible to them. People are able to come on a lunch break or before they went into work or even after work. And there were some hiccups, of course, as you start something new. But overall, I think it was really successful. I visited the site on Friday and was able to witness the work happening and the gratitude of the people that were receiving vaccinations. And I think it really just was a real plus for our community, and done in a way that for a lot of folks, otherwise they would have to wait a long time to get their vaccines. At this time, I'd like to turn the time over to Councilmember Jimenez for a moment. I know he was involved in the farm outreach and the work with the farm workers, and has some connections to that community, and he has some things to share about this event as well.
Thank you, Matthew. I want to share a little bit with you about some of the history about a collective of different organizations and groups here from San Mateo County, or how we received the vaccine in Half Moon Bay. from last year, we came together with the city of Half Moon Bay, the county, and various organizations to bring testing to the coast. From the testing, coming to Half Moon Bay, to Pescadero area, and we continue to advocate, for the community to receive more testing. This year, we've been talking about bringing the vaccine to Half Moon Bay. As you know, the first vaccines were given out at the event center in San Mateo, and wanting to reach out to to a community that was more vulnerable, not access to transportation. Thinking about the coast side, Half Moon Bay, Pescadero area, and we were able to receive the vaccine in Half Moon Bay, and especially going out to the farms. At first, I have to share with you, some of the farm workers were not were thinking about not receiving the vaccine. When the ones they saw the visits of the first farms, uh, by the collaboration of the organization ALAS, uh, Senora Juana Ruano, who was a key player, in organizing the vaccines at the farms, it went great. Now, most of the farms have been vaccinated. The big farms in the coast, in Pescadero, and we are waiting for the team to come back again to Half Moon Bay on Friday, and finish vaccinating the Rocket Farms and a few other farms in the area. Now, there's a positive response from the community. Now they want to get vaccinated. So we went, I believe, maybe last week, maybe 7 people did not agree to be vaccinated. Some of these farms in the coast, and now we having actually they're reaching out to us, to the city, reaching out to Coast I Hope, Puente, in Alas, here in Half Moon Bay, to receive the vaccine. So overall, I think it's been a great turnout. I want to thank the San Mateo County for bringing the vaccines to our farm workers, to our community here in the coast side.
Thanks, Joaquin.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just, I don't know if Matthew's
Yeah, Bob.
finished yet, but if I could just, I feel compelled to jump in at this point. So I would like to acknowledge and commend Councilmember Jimenez and Deputy City Manager Matthew Chittister. There's a lot of people involved in this, and how this came to the coast the way it did. And hopefully now this is the beginning of the floodgates opening as we move to the next tiers. But I guarantee you, this did not happen without their involvement. I guarantee you and the community that. Councilmember Jimenez, he's been doing this kind of stuff, before he was a council member, and getting stuff done behind the scenes. And now he brings that to the city as a council member, and he has council member on his business card, so he has that power now. And Matthew Chittister has been behind the scenes, and getting them to come to the coast side just takes a lot of effort that you don't see. He's at the meetings, he's bugging the county, he's raising his hand at the right time saying, yes, we can, not, yes, but, and that's what it takes. So I just wanted to take a minute and commend both of them for how this happened. Just all of a sudden, it just doesn't happen by magic. A lot of people involved, but those two really were a part of getting this to the coast side, as you saw last week. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the kind words. And it's a great segue. Next slide, please. So I do want to recognize, we live in such an incredible community. We saw it last week at the Awesomeness Awards for the Chamber. All these great businesses and nonprofits that have pulled together this last year with the community to support each other and to make sure that our community is taken care of. And this is the group that really made it happen. First and foremost, we want to recognize the county. They have a lot of demands. Lots of people feel like they deserve the vaccine, they need it, they want it. But the county has been really surgical in identifying where it will do the most good and the individuals that need the most help. And we've been blessed to be included in that list and prioritized to provide better access to our community. As Councilmember Jimenez said, ALAS plays a really key role in reaching our Latinx community and in our community at large. You know, they're a very trusted nonprofit in the community, and they do a lot of great work to coordinate and to make these things happen. And to Bob's point, these things would not happen without organizations like ALAS. Coastside Hope is our core service provider here in the Mid-Coast and Half Moon Bay, and they really stepped up to make this happen. Puente down in Pescadero has the same role and is a strong advocate for farm workers in the community there. I want to recognize our other city staff, Victor Gaitan from the city manager's office and our recreation team. They worked with Alas Puente and Coastside Hope. The registration for these events last week, over 1,000 people, were all done over the phone because we really had a limited number of vaccines and a limited range of people that were going to be able to be vaccinated. And so doing it over the phone made the most sense for this past week. And I know that they were on the phones a lot longer than a normal business day. I know that Victor was getting calls on his personal cell phone over the weekend because people knew that he was helping people get registered and they were wondering about the next event. So just grateful that people are so flexible and willing to take on any challenge. And then I would be remiss not to recognize the CERT volunteers here on the coast side. CERT was not activated officially for this. They have not been activated officially for our testing site, but the people that are members of CERT are just servants to the community and they want to help in any way. And we have these really dedicated volunteers that show up week in and week out to the testing site to make sure it runs well and we can serve a lot of people. And on a day's notice showed up and worked many, many hours to help support the activities last week and are waiting for the next opportunity to serve. It's just awe-inspiring the how much time and energy those folks give to our community and our other volunteers as well. Looking forward, next slide, please. The supply issues remain a problem and hopefully will be resolved over the coming weeks due to weather and some of the changes of the state. And so this week, we're not looking at the county being able to hold the kind of events it did last week, although ultimately their plan is to do that on a consistent basis. For this week, we know that there will be, as Councilmember Jimenez mentioned, a mobile team continuing to vaccinate the farm workers on site. We are hoping to be able to do some work with 65 and up seniors, especially those that cannot get over the hill to a vaccination clinic. And I would just encourage anybody that's listening, or if you know somebody that's 65 and older who has not been vaccinated, reach out to the Senior Coastsiders. They are going to be a partner in anything we do to support the seniors. And they can take your information. And if we're able to pull something off, which we'll know in the next day or so, we'll reach out and get people set up so that they can come and get vaccinated in a convenient way that works for them. The county remains dedicated to being here and vaccinating our community and making sure that we're healthy and safe. As many of you probably know, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was approved at the federal level over the weekend. And I just want to remind folks, there's differences between each vaccine, but every doctor that you talk to says, if you have an opportunity for a vaccine, you take it. You can't be picky. Don't wait for or hold out for a special vaccine. You take what you can get because it's going to keep you safe and keep you healthy. And they're all really good to help us. So just keep that in mind. Another important piece of information is the state announced last week that on March 15th, anybody 16 and up becomes eligible for the vaccine if they meet certain criteria, meaning they have certain health conditions that put them at exceptional risk for COVID. What that means is a much larger number of our residents here on the coast side, in the county, and in the state are going to be eligible for vaccines, which will put another demand on the vaccination process. So we encourage people to be patient. There will be enough vaccines for everybody, and as more vaccines come online, they'll become available in higher quantities more quickly. For now, we continue to encourage folks that the best route to get vaccinated is to contact your healthcare provider or your primary care provider. They have their own allotments of vaccines. They're dealing with some of the same supply issues that the county is, but for many people, that will be the fastest and most effective route to get vaccinated. Another thing you need to do is, if you haven't already, sign up at two places. The first is the county's eligibility site, which is smchealth.org/COVID-19-vaccination. And there it takes about 5 minutes, you enter your information, and they will notify you when there's an opportunity to get a vaccine here in San Mateo County. The state also has a site called My Turn, and it's myturn.ca.gov, and it's very similar. Takes about the same amount of time, and they'll also notify you of when you're eligible and when there's an opportunity for you to get vaccinated. I encourage, and the county encourages, signing up for both because they aren't perfectly in sync yet, and so you may get a faster opportunity or better opportunity if you're registered in both. Again, it's very quick. This information is only used for that purpose, to get you notified of eligibility and a place to get vaccinated. The county has a great website, smchealth.org/COVID vaccine. It's a great place to look at the county's dashboards, to understand the data and what's happening in our county, and to stay on top of changes to policies or eligibility. And the state's COVID19.ca.gov website is a great place for information. Final reminder on this, so important. Just because you've been vaccinated does not necessarily mean you cannot transmit the disease to someone else. A vaccination helps to prevent your own infection, or if you do get infected, not severe symptoms or problems, no hospitalization, but it does not guarantee that you can't contract it and give it to someone else or carry it to someone else. So for the time being, even after you've been vaccinated, even if you've gotten 2 vaccinations and you've waited the time for the vaccination to kick in, you still need to socially distance, you still need to wear masks. As the county opens up and we're allowed to do more things like go into restaurants and eat outside and go to stores and start to go to church and other things, it's more important right now for people to be really diligent and just follow the rules that we've been following all along. And the sooner we do that and people get themselves vaccinated, the sooner we'll be able to get back to a bit more normalcy in our lives. Next slide, please. And then just a final reminder, we continue to do testing every Monday at the Ted Adcock Community Center from 3 to 6 p.m. You can register online or you can walk up. And then senior co-siders, because many seniors have been vaccinated, they've seen a real reduction in numbers of testing. And so in order to support their other programs and their volunteers, they're now only open on the first and third Thursday of each month. And they continue to provide testing for older adults 55 and over and their caregivers. You can reach out to them if you don't fit into those categories. They've said that if someone can't get to a Monday night testing event or has an emergency, they probably can accommodate you as well, even if you don't fit into those categories. You can also register online for them or call them at 726-9056 and they'll get you set up. Just want to thank the county for their work here, the city council for their support, and for our staff and volunteers who have really dedicated their time and energy to making sure that testing and vaccinations are available. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel here. It's really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Did council members have any questions or additional? I don't see anything. Oh, Harvey, yeah, go ahead.
No, no real question. Just thank you to all the good work that Joaquin, the city, the county have done to really start getting a decent fraction of our citizens vaccinated. So I'm really proud of what's been going on, and I applaud you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to ditto that. And to Matthew's point, when we get these vaccines, we're definitely safer than if we didn't get the vaccines. But it is pretty critical not to let our guards down until folks get fully vaccinated. Wait the extra 10 days if it's 2 vaccines after the second dose. I'm not sure what the Johnson and Johnson waiting period is after their one dose. I'll assume it's something similar, 10 to 14 days. And yeah, keep your guard up. Be careful. And I can't really overstate what a success story this is. When I think back to only 4 weeks ago, we were very concerned that the huge equity issues, making sure folks who didn't have access could, having a localized process and setup to deliver vaccines. And the first miracle was having these vaccines in the first place. And now the second miracle was implementation and delivery. But it wasn't a miracle. It's a lot of hard work, and it's fantastic because now we can't control the supply, but the piece that we do have control is setting up a great delivery process out here on the coast. And now we've done that. And as the vaccine supply increases, we will enable folks to really have a dependable source of vaccine right here on the coast without having to go over the hill, and allow folks who don't have access to transportation to get those vaccines. And we also have, no one's going to end up without getting a vaccine because we have a trustworthy process and a trustworthy delivery system. So thanks to everyone. Can't thank Joaquin, Matthew, and Victor, and everybody else who's made this possible. So.
Thank you, Mayor. To your point, can I make one last comment?
Yes. Yeah.
For those that need assistance getting to a vaccination, maybe they have a doctor over the hill that can vaccinate them, or it's faster for them to get to one of the county events over the hill. Samtrans announced last week that they will provide free transportation to anybody going to get a vaccination, and the burden of proof is low. So if you need help getting to a vaccination site, whether it's here or over the hill, call Samtrans and they will help make arrangements, whether it's through Ready Wheels, Ready Coast, or some other means. And so just another example of an agency here in the community here stepping up to make sure that where they have an ability to help, they can. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matthew. And we'll provide those Samtrans numbers on our e-news as well and social media. As first, we'll make sure it's working well, and then we'll get the word out there. So the process in place. Great, thank you. Okay, I think our next item on updates is a recycling center update, which Jennifer John will present. Thanks,
That's
Jennifer.
me. Good evening, City Council and community members. I'm here with a quick but really exciting update, and that's to announce the opening of our Coastside Recycling Center that's been in the works for the past year plus. Next slide, please. So our first day of operations is actually going to be this Sunday, March 7th, starting at 7 a.m. This is an example of one of those projects that takes a very, very long time to get going, and then all the pieces kind of fall into place and you run with it and you take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself. So if anyone's driven by CVS, as of Monday, the storage container is there, the sorting containers are there on site. And starting Sunday at 7 a.m., it will be staffed by our partners, J&D Recycling. On the left side, you'll see that map, exactly where it's located. Just look for the yellow star, but really excited for this opportunity to come to the coast, a convenient place for people to redeem their bottles and cans. Next slide, please. Moving forward, after Sunday, this recycling center will be open Sundays and Mondays from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a 1-hour lunch break from 12 to 1, and every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon. I do want to emphasize that this is a pilot project that's being funded by the state. And so, we're going to be assessing how this recycling center is working for Coastside residents, and if we need to make adjustments to the hours, if we need to increase hours, if we need to move some things around, that's definitely not out of the question. We expect these hours to be in place for at least 2 months, and then we can go ahead and reevaluate the need at that point. And so, for the next couple months, feel confident in going to the recycling center in the hours posted on this slide, but I would also highly encourage people to subscribe to our e-news and our sustainability newsletter for updates. Anything that changes, we'll make sure we put it in those different mediums so people are updated on when and how to access this service. Next slide, please. I do want to remind people that this is not a full service recycling center. This is specifically for your beverage containers to get back your California redemption value that you pay in the grocery store when you buy one of these bottles. This recycling center will be accepting your glass bottles, clear, green, and brown. So blue is not accepted at this location. Your aluminum cans, so your soda cans primarily, and then plastic bottles, and they'll take number 1 all the way through number 7. We are asking that everybody pre-sorts all of their material before they come to the center. This is for cleanliness and to also make sure that there isn't a lot of traffic congestion. We want people to be able to come in, redeem, get their money, and then get out. So that way we can make room for others that would like to use this service. And so please just make sure that you pre-sort all of your material before arriving. Make sure it's free of debris, liquid, and other foreign substances. And if you have questions, please reach out to us, J&D Recycling, or go to our website, which is on the next slide, please. So you can go to our website, hmbcity.com/recycling center. It has all of this information there, the types of materials, along with some handy resources that will help you make sure that you're sorting things into the right categories. And it also has all of the contact information for anyone that's looking to take advantage of these services. And again, I would be remiss if I did not thank Dr. Joe Musich and the Strawflower Village, our partners at J&D Recycling, for persevering to make this happen. It's been a long time coming. It's a service that I think is desperately needed on the coast side, and I really hope that it's used. So please, please, please come. We're waiting for you. We're ready to welcome you with open arms and to give you a little bit of the side money back that is yours. So please come and visit us.
Thank you, Jennifer. That is a great addition to our recycling and sustainability efforts. So greatly appreciated all of the work you and everyone else has done to get this going, and looking forward to checking it out. Any questions from council members before Jennifer leaves us? Joaquin?
Well, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. There's a specific, unique individuals in our community that like to recycle, around town. And I think, it would be great to recognize them. There's some of our community members that walk around the shopping centers or Main Street area and just recycle. We want to promote recycling in our community, and I believe they have done a great job helping us with that. Having this center here in Half Moon Bay, I'm sure is going to be great for them to continue to recycle. Another incentive for the community in Half Moon Bay, for the coastside, and to recycle. So just a little something I was thinking about, just recognizing these individuals that have been recycling, and I know for them it's a way to bring extra income into their homes, but for our community, it's keeping our community green. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you again, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Great presentation, and our next update is regarding our upcoming listening sessions to help the council get feedback about our priorities setting session, which will occur later in the month. So Colleen, I believe you'll do this presentation.
Yes, very, very brief update about the upcoming listening sessions. So we have our first one tomorrow evening from 6 till 8 p.m. and registration is still open. So we encourage everyone, if you haven't yet, make sure to register. And if you're unable to make it to tomorrow evenings, we also have another, oh, there it is. Okay. we have another session on Saturday morning from 10 to noon, wanting to give people a chance to come at different times if some doesn't work better than the others. And also, if you can't attend any listening session at all, we have a feedback portal that on our website where you can provide any information you deem important, anything you want to convey to the council. You can access this at hmbcity.com/listening sessions. So again, we highly encourage you to attend these events because this information will inform the city council priority setting session. So again, hmbcity.com/listening sessions, and tomorrow night, 6 p.m. So we hope to see you there. Thank you very much. And let me know if you have any questions.
Yes.
Chair?
Yeah, Deborah?
Yes.
Yeah, Colleen, will translation be available in English and in Spanish? Or
Yes,
just
we will have live interpretation like we do in the council meetings now, and that will be made available at both sessions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah.
Colleen, will we enforce the 3-minute rule?
No, that rule will not be enforced.
Great.
Any other questions? No? All right. I believe that is the last. Yes, it is. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to consent calendar. We have 5 items on the consent calendar this evening. Did any, sure I can see everyone, did any council members need to pull any items? Okay. Can I have a volunteer to make a motion regarding the consent calendar?
I move that we approve consent calendar item 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. 1B, approval of minutes. 1C, professional services agreement amendments for the Highway 1 Safety and Operational Improvement South project. That's CIP number 523. 1D, application for statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds. That's California Proposition 68. And lastly, 1E, our legislative budget request letters.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Penrose,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryback,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So moving on from our consent calendar, tonight we have no ordinances or public hearings. So we will move to resolutions and staff reports. And tonight we will have an update on the Coastside Recovery Initiative and proposed funding contribution for the county's restaurant, brewery, and winery relief fund. And I think we'll have a staff report first on that.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and community. I am Karen Decker, Project Manager for the Coastside Recovery Initiative, which was formed in partnership with San Mateo County and the Coastside Half Moon Bay Chamber of Commerce. For this update, you will first hear a summary of the recent open house by consultant Erica Wood. Next, I will speak to the new recovery task force. At that point, we will pause for any questions. And then finally, Deputy City Manager Matthew Chittister will conclude our presentation by recommending a contribution toward a relief fund. With that, I invite Erica to kick us off with an overview of the open house.
All right, thank you, Karen, and good evening, council members and community members. I'm delighted to be with all of you here this evening. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a community open house event on February 11th. Our event goals were really threefold: to first build general awareness and interest in the Coastside Recovery Initiative, Then we really wanted to engage a cross-section of coastside residents in aspirational conversations about what it would take to create a more equitable, vibrant, and resilient coastside economy and community. And then finally, we wanted to promote opportunities for people to provide input and to continue to be involved in the effort after the open house. I'm really pleased to say that we accomplished all three goals, and that was made possible with the help of a lot of people on tonight's call. So thank you for that. So first, just a couple of quick highlights for everybody. We had 187 RSVPs and 161 participants, which included staff. And you know, this is striking to me for a couple of reasons. One, it was a great mix of people who participated, from businesses representing restaurants, hotels and farms, labor, nonprofits and philanthropy, news and media organizations, elected officials, and finally, the community at large. So we had a great mix. The second thing that's striking about these numbers is, of course, our attendance goal. And the project team that really has been focused on the event most closely had early conversations about, well, what kind of attendance would we expect? And we came up with a number of 75 or 80 as a stretch goal. And you can see that we had double the number of participants, and we managed to achieve that on the same night that the Cabrillo Unified School District had a very important meeting regarding the reopening of schools. So we felt really, really good about the participation. A couple of other things I'll just call out is you've heard Karen and I talk about our guiding principles for this initiative, one of those being inclusion. So we tried a couple of things in terms of our program design to make sure we were as inclusive as possible. And those things included simultaneous Spanish language interpretation, also graphic recording. You saw an example of that on the previous slide, so that we were able to capture program highlights both in pictures and in words. So we were pleased about that. So now to the good stuff. We'll move on to all of the input and ideas that we received. Hundreds and hundreds of comments that I've been combing through over the last several days. And I'll try and get through these next couple of slides in about 5 or 6 minutes. So bear with me, there's a lot of good stuff here. The small group conversations were really the centerpiece of the program. And what I'm going to share here is a summary of comments that we got from 9 of the 11 small group discussions that we had, for which we were provided notes or an audio recording that we could transcribe. The information here also reflects input and comments that we received through the chat messages that were running throughout the open house, as well as even a couple of comments that came into us from participants after the event that just had more things they wanted to share with us and to say. So the first question that we posed to people was, when you think about jobs, workers, and the economy, what concerns you the most? And what you see here on the slide are the top 5 issues that came up based on the number of comments that we heard. Not surprisingly, impacts on industry and job displacement, which is really involuntary job loss, loomed large in the conversation. People talked about impacts on the industries that predominate here on the coast side: hospitality, tourism. People honed in on restaurants and the fact that restaurants in particular have had to close and then open and then close and reopen, do service outside. So they've really been impacted. We heard participants mention agriculture and job loss in that sector in particular. And people named the closure of Bay City Flowers as an example of that. Related to industry impacts, there were also lots of comments around the job quality, and that the coast side is predominated by too many low-wage jobs. And participants described our community as a bedroom community where people live, but then they commute over the hill. for jobs that provide higher wages, better benefits, and opportunities for advancement. And, this concern was reflected in one of the quotes that we heard from our participants about the next generation that's up and coming, and that this particular participant really wants graduates of our local high school who are inspired to come back here, to stay here, and to contribute, to making our community a great place. So the job quality was an issue. And that also relates to the last bullet, that we don't have as diverse of a talent pool here as other parts of the Bay Area. So it's sometimes hard to find the match between a job and the person with the right skills. So on the theme of jobs and income, affordable housing is the next thing that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. Obviously, you need to make a lot to afford the median priced home here. Prices are high because affordable housing is in short supply, and people named that. They named particular communities for whom affordable housing is particularly difficult, including seniors, lower wage workers that are having to live far away from the coast and then drive in, which creates a series of related challenges. Rental housing also in short supply. A couple of participants talked about trying to offer rental properties to people, but then ended up converting them into Airbnbs because they had higher income earning potential to offset property taxes. So have talked about impacts on industry, jobs, housing. People also came up as a concern, and vulnerable populations and how they have fared in the wake of COVID and associated challenges. Families came up in these conversations in terms of having to make really hard choices to make ends meet, and having one member of the household having to go over the hill for work because they could make more, and another member of the household having to stay here where they earned less. People talked about the impacts on women, and also essential workers, and that essential workers don't have a choice about whether they have to go to work or not, or can work from home. Farm workers came up in this particular category, and that farm workers lack things like access to healthcare, which is really important in these times, and also aren't afforded the rights that many of us are and can sometimes be taken advantage of. And one of the examples of that was the hemp farm and workers that weren't paid. So those are some of the top concerns that came up in our group conversations. I'm happy that we are really taking into account that we want to come up with strategies that will address the hardest hit and the most vulnerable. That's really important. And I also appreciated the second quote on the slide here, which was an affirmation of our co-side-wide approach. And this particular person said, we are divided into factions, which isn't easy, but it should be viewed for what it is, as an artificial barrier to solving community-wide problems. So now turning to solutions, after giving people an opportunity to voice their concerns, we asked, okay, what actions should we take as a community to address the challenges that you've raised? And by far, we received the most number of comments around improving the digital infrastructure. People talked about the internet on the coast side as being both fragile and frustrating, and that there's no guarantee of service, which makes this new way of working from home particularly difficult. People mentioned fiber optic internet capacity, and having fiber optic internet capacity, for example, on Main Street in downtown Half Moon Bay would be important. People talked about spaces as part of the solutions to our challenges, and how can we make creative use of existing commercial space that may be vacant, as well as how do we do some neat things around co-working spaces and places that encourage people to come together and to collaborate, and then to see what ideas are sparked as a result of that collaboration. Downtown revitalization was also embedded in this particular item that came up quite a bit, making downtown more vibrant, pedestrian and bicycle friendly. And the city was given a shout out here with the recognition that sometimes we've got to change regulations to facilitate some of these changes. So the work done around creating parklet opportunities was mentioned and appreciated. Diversifying the economy. This was another big theme that emerged from the conversations. We're heavily reliant on tourism, as everyone knows. So a lot of comments around how we would diversify, what types of businesses would we attract here and want to attract here, and how would we go about that? And a couple of comments around how do we kind of seize and take advantage of the beauty, the remarkable beauty of the coastside as an incentive and a hook to attract businesses. So you see one of the quotes that reflects that. I would love to further explore the coastside as a center of environmental stewardship and sustainability. So related to diversification, people had ideas about creative new jobs and different types of work. One of the things that came up here was the idea of business cooperatives that are owned by workers, and specifically business cooperatives that could support the Latinx community and help people that might be on the lower wage end of the spectrum actually be able to get skills and advance to earn a higher wage. That was an interesting comment. Incubators, support for startups, and using retired members of the workforce to impart skills and knowledge to newer members of the workforce. We're all in this idea of sparking business and job innovation. Supporting schools, investing in schools, helping ensure we've got the talent pipeline that can go after the jobs of the future was an important solution. And making the coastside a place where families want to be because we have best-in-class public education available. And then if we do all of those things, we obviously need to have places for people to live that they can afford. So I whizzed through all of that in a few minutes. Rest assured that there is a detailed proceedings document that we will make available to all of you and to the public on the website. We're about a couple of days away from that. And on this last slide, I'll just remind everybody that while the open house was an important milestone in the Coastside Recovery Initiative, if we can move forward, Matthew, it's not the only milestone in the initiative. In some ways, we're just getting started here, having completed our public launch, which was the open house. And now we're going to turn our attention to our task force and recruiting wonderful members who can help us steer this work forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen, who's going to talk about the next milestone.
Thanks, Erica. I'm excited to share information about the Recovery Task Force. It's a major arm of the Coastside Recovery Initiative, and really it's the local wisdom of community members that will drive meaningful change. So kind of seeing the Recovery Task Force go from a concept to its formation and it's about to get its wings is just, it's a great step forward. So the members of the Recovery Task Force are expected to serve as a strategic advisory body on data collection, analysis, and recommendation phases for the initiative. So I know that's a little abstract, so I'm going to drill down on some specifics over these bullets. First off, serving as ambassadors. So task force members will be expected to champion the initiative. They'll be expected to keep the momentum going forward and to really dedicate the time to do a deep dive into realizing some of these ideas, fact finding, and hopefully this will all go towards implementation. Next, we have identify data sources, key informant and focus group participants, and interpret findings. So again, the task force members are very critical, but really there are so many other areas that are going to cross both qualitative and quantitative methodologies. And that's going to take different forms, and they're going to be really instrumental in gathering that data and then just kind of taking a step back and analyzing it and extracting the most important key themes. The third bullet is related to the fourth as well. So that's identify unmet business and workforce needs, and then help develop recommendations to address those unmet needs. So I recall in another presentation on this topic, Vice Mayor Ruddick had said that, before we go chasing solutions, we have to first have a really clear understanding of what the problems are and what we're trying to attempt to solve. So the task force is going to be really key in drilling down those specifics. And then finally, promoting and assisting in implementing recommendations. The task force is, again, going back to being ambassadors and championing this. We have an ambitious timeline. We had proposed having a presentation and recommendations, roughly all things considered, right around the beginning of the new fiscal year. So, and that's admittedly an ambitious timeline, and that will be all the more likely realized by what those key findings are, and depending on what they are, task force members being able to carry some of those forward. Next slide, please. So the application review process itself. So following the open house, the Coastside Recovery Initiative team was delighted to receive about 30 applications from Coastsiders. They were passionate about economic recovery and long-term sustainability. And I just want to publicly thank each and every one of them for their willingness to give their time and to give their ideas. It was heartening to see the applications steadily roll in. And the review team is in the midst of the notification process to applicants. And really, I'm stuck to that original intention of about 16 members, give or take. And with any application process, there is the review component. So I just wanted to provide an overview of that. First off, you have the general criteria. So every task force member either lives or works or has a strong affiliation to the Coastside. That was just really clear from the onset of this whole concept, and is just so specific to this particular initiative. There had to be an interest and a commitment to fully participate in a meaningful and constructive way to the task force meetings and to the work that's going to occur in between those meetings. Also, a willingness to view economic recovery broadly and propose solutions that lead to a stronger Coastside community as a whole. Next, there are guiding principles, and I know I've reported out on some of these principles before. The top two that really came to mind during the review process was engaging new perspectives, and then of course the inclusion that Erica mentioned earlier. And it's so important, I think it just bears repeating. So inclusion, there's three facets of that. The first being geographic representation. So as described previously, for the purposes of this initiative, the Coastside is one unified economy. And so Coastside is defined from Devil's Slide south to the county line and then east to Skyline Boulevard. So in reviewing the applications that came in, it was really important to get diverse representation of the Coastside at large and not just one or two particular neighborhoods. Inclusion also refers to sector and industry representation. Erica mentioned the wide variety of industries and sectors represented at the open house, which was really thrilling to see. We all know that hospitality and tourism and restaurants and small businesses have been really impacted by COVID. There are also other industries, existing industries that make the coast very unique, like our agriculture and our fishing industries, our nonprofits, so many. And while we will never have all of the technical expertise that touches all of these really important sectors, that's okay. I'm really, really pleased to see a robust representation. And the sectors that are not as sufficiently represented will be engaged with in other forums, be it focus groups or key informant interviews. And really the task force members will be charged with kind of stepping back and identifying some of those gaps and helping glean some of that meaningful information through other means. So even though not every industry will be represented in the form of a task force member, there are many other ways for sector inclusion and representation. But that was definitely taken into consideration. And then finally, under inclusion, I just want to reiterate that research has proven that COVID has disproportionately impacted low-income residents and communities of color and women. And I think that the initiative and the efforts behind it would be remiss to not see that representation on the task force. And then finally, the top priorities, both short-term and long-term, really this refers to the themes that emerged from the open house. I mean, what an opportunity to have 160 plus perspectives, such rich data collecting in and of itself from just that single event. And the concerns and the solutions that Erica just highlighted, you know, I heard vulnerable populations and essential workers, job displacement, digital infrastructure, environmental stewardship. These are the themes that the community has already started to has already started to identify. And so with that said, is specific to this time and place. And so that subject matter expertise and representation was also taken into consideration when stepping back and looking at the applications as a whole. I know that that was a lot of information so far. And so at this point, I just wanted to pause and see if there were any questions that anyone has pertaining to what Erica or I have shared so far before turning it over to Matthew.
Any comments from council or questions? Joaquin.
Yes, I really enjoyed your presentation. I was part of the event, and thank you. You know, being very inclusive of our community and reaching out to a very vulnerable, you know, community. And want to thank you for your representation.
Thank you.
Harvey.
One of the top priorities that clearly came out from the open house is the necessity to have reliable digital infrastructure, reliable, affordable, flexible. And I have tried to advocate, and I continue to advocate for the city or the county or the government to consider that the internet is like garbage in the sense that we have a single provider. Also, like sewage, we have one one way that we know that the sewage is being taken care of. And I think we should start to explore the possibility that government installs fiber on in every location, and it's paid for over a period of time by the people who benefit from the fiber. In the long run, I'd much rather give my money to a city utility than to Comcast or AT&T or Verizon, who do not have the community best interests in mind. So this is a long-term process, but I think if we can actually implement a government-run infrastructure for digital connectivity, I think we would be doing all our citizens a real boost. So that's my 2 cents.
I second Harvey's proposal. Thanks, Harvey.
Sure.
It is frustrating that fiber optics seems to be located in some parts of the town. It's AT&T provided right now. And we will either have to dig around. Obviously, it could happen if they wanted to spend the money, but we will have to dig around, either pressure them to see what can happen for us and work with them, see if there's county grant money or state money. There's a lot of money coming our way from the feds. Perhaps there's ways to utilize some of that. But yeah, Harvey, I completely agree. And it would be interesting, yeah, now that we have a task force with a brain trust of 16 folks, it would be terrific, you know, if some research can be done along those lines. We certainly know some municipalities on the peninsula have their own power. They don't rely on PG&E, haven't for years. I think Palo Alto is an example of that. So maybe you can have some of that brain trust figure out what's working in similar situated cities and get something moving on that. So great idea. Any other questions or comments? That kickoff really was fantastic. It was a huge undertaking. And, thanks to Erica, Karen, all of staff, there was at least 20 breakout groups. I can't remember how many. And we had a facilitator in each room, then collecting all the data and sorting it out into something that's meaningful and something we can act on. And then organizing, the process for the task force. I just think terrific progress has been made on this from the time we began it. So thanks to everyone and their efforts. I'm really excited. I think you put 16 innovative, creative folks together who really care about a community, things will happen. I guarantee it. Deborah.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I am hoping that the task force can look at a couple of points around the issue of the lack of employment opportunity here on the coast, and combine that with the willingness of the retired professionals, retired workers on the coast to act as mentors,
right.
To include labor unions, to bring training here on the coast. So I'm hoping that we won't be leaving out that segment of our population, the retired folks, and the folks that don't, that have the skills that they would love to be able to share and help out with.
Yeah, those are great ideas. I know that, and what's nice is there's some existing models for that already. I know the SBA, right, used to have a program where retired business owners would coach and mentor, newcomers to, entrepreneurs and business folks. So we might be able to get some thoughts, around those models. And also in terms of the labor unions, they already have some apprenticeship programs out here, and it'd be interesting to see if there's ways to expand some of those, because those are great jobs, and maybe there's ways to expand those programs in certain ways that we just can't think of right this second. But yeah, that sounds great. And it's interesting, there's a new normal. COVID has created, these are things you used to read about in Workplace of the Future, but there's basically an underlying lack of trust issue for many companies that if you let people work from home, they would be productive. So that whole question and myth has been shattered over the last year because so many people are working from home. So that makes it kind of interesting. In other words, the headquarters of companies are over the hill, but so many less people, and we don't really have a handle on that, are necessarily having to travel over the hill. And I can promise you, there's certainly a lot of folks, if they don't have to go back to the office, depending on what the nature of the work is, 5 days a week, there's a lot of people who will be working from home. So it's going to be this interesting hybrid of different kinds of jobs. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of what people, need, and whether or not we can create to really address this gap in the high paying jobs and minimum wage paying jobs. I mean, that's the real struggle. In terms of jobs being located out here, certainly many high paying jobs will be, in a sense, located because the people will be here at home working. So it'll be interesting to see how to work all those varying nuances as COVID lifts and see, what people and what their job work preferences will be. Great. I think that's it for our first part of this update. And we also have, there's no presentation, I don't think, about the resolution authorizing.
I believe Matthew has a couple slides he's going to share.
Oh, okay, great. I didn't see stuff in the deck, so great. And by the way, let me just double check. Would I be opening, I don't know if I should open this up to public for questions at this juncture versus waiting till the
Mr. Mayor, I would
second?
recommend that you wait for Matthew to finish his
Great.
part.
Do them both at once. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll be quick with this because I know there's probably members of the community that have questions and ideas. One of the things that we've identified will be really important for this initiative is to find some ways to immediately help provide relief and support the community. I think that will add credibility to the work that we're going to do and really show that this is results oriented and not just idea oriented. And so one of the areas we've identified is a new initiative that the county is leading. It's called the San Mateo County Restaurant, Brewery, and Winery Relief Program. It's similar to something that they did earlier on in the pandemic through the SMC Strong Fund. It's a matching fund that the county put together with philanthropic foundations. Several $1 million have been put into a fund for this, and there was recognition that restaurants and food places had been hit extremely hard by the pandemic and needed additional support. And so the way this program is set up is they are offering $10,000 grants to cover current operating expenses for existing qualifying businesses, which again are restaurants, breweries, and wineries. Through the initial funding, there's an allocation being provided to each jurisdiction in the county. And through this, 3 grants totaling $30,000 have been allocated to businesses in the city of Half Moon Bay. That grant process is already open and applications are streaming in. It will actually close next Monday at noon, March 8th. At last count, there was close to 20 applicants from businesses in Half Moon Bay competing for 3 grants. It is possible that some of them may be asking for less than $10,000 and there might be an opportunity for 4 businesses to get grants, but 20 businesses fighting for $30,000, it doesn't go a long ways. And so what we're proposing is the county has a matching program that allows cities to contribute to the fund. And then that money would in turn be made available only to businesses within their city, but it would be administered as part of the greater grant program. So there's an opportunity for cities to provide funding, but not have to get involved in the management and the allocation of the process. And so, we've talked it over internally, and staff has recommended to council that they contribute an additional $40,000. And that would get to a total of 7, possibly more grants, depending again on how much people ask for. It again doesn't reach all of those that are in need, but hopefully it's a start down that path. And then hopefully as more funding becomes available, that additional support can be provided to businesses. I've had a long conversation with Crystal Geet from our chamber, who's just an incredible resource. And I forgot to recognize her when I talked about the vaccinations. She did a phenomenal job getting the word out to the businesses to let their employees know that they could get vaccinated. So I just want to recognize her. She's a partner in almost everything we do, it seems like. Chamber of Commerce seems to be, you'd think is just focused on businesses, but she really has a broader picture of what it takes to make this a great community. And we're just grateful to her. And her and I had a conversation about this. And, it's interesting. They're in the city, within the city limits, there are close to 50 of businesses that meet this criteria. And all of those businesses have struggled during COVID. They've taken hits. They had to be closed initially, and then they were able to reopen, and then it expanded, and then it went back. And I think that we know it's frustrating, but we don't realize the burden that places on the business itself, because they don't just open and close or put some tables out or pull them in. There's an investment made every single time there's a change to what they're allowed to do. There are businesses that have had to convert a gift shop or a small entry area into a pickup spot for people that have ordered dinner and are just picking it up and going. Lots of money has been spent on creating outdoor seating areas, whether it's elaborate tents with platforms to really keep people out of the elements and dry, but also safe from too much close contact during COVID to smaller installations in parking lots or on the street. All of these things add up at a time when businesses are down significantly. Surprisingly enough, to date, there's only been a handful of businesses that have actually closed their doors permanently here on the coast side that fit into this category. But there are still many that are really on the edge of disaster. And I think some of them have maintained because there's been generous landlords that have been forgiving with rent or patient in working with them. They've been able to get the PPP loans and other loans and grants from federal and state agencies. We think there's an opportunity here for the city to support some of these businesses, help keep them moving, help to keep the economy moving forward, especially now that we're in the red tier. There's this great opportunity for business to pick up as we know that the good weather's coming and the visitors are coming, and we'd like the businesses to be ready for that so that they can take advantage. So that's our recommendation tonight, is that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing a contribution of an additional $40,000 towards the county's Restaurant, Brewery, and Winery Relief Fund. And of course, if approved, we'll work with the county very quickly to get the money there, so that as soon as the applications close, they can make their decisions and get the money to the businesses as quickly as possible. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, public comment. Thank you.
Yeah, Deborah, I think, has a question.
Yeah, I have a question and also a comment. My question is, what criterion are the loans going to be based on? The granting of the loans going to be based on? Are we talking about helping out the businesses that are doing the worst, the ones that have the best track record for surviving? What criteria are being used?
I can find out more. My understanding of the program is applications are taken, and if you have to apply before the deadline, and then they're evaluated to make sure they're qualifying businesses, and then I believe it's a lottery to allocate it. That's how the first round of these types of grants were allocated, and my understanding is that's the same for this, but I will confirm to be 100% sure, and I can get that information to you.
Great, thank you. And then my comment is, if there are already 20 applications from the 50 or so qualifying businesses here in town, I would like to see the city contribute more, like 70,000, bringing the total up to 100,000, including the county's 30,000, so that we could service at least 10 of those businesses. That would be my recommendation.
Any other thoughts, comments regarding Deborah's?
I think it makes sense. And just like the grant program that we discussed at the last city council meeting, I am an optimist that the federal COVID Relief Act will contribute more money. We were told that if it goes through the way it's supposed to go through, based on our population, the city would be due for more than $2 million in federal relief funds. So considering that Half Moon Bay is a heavily dependent on tourists and restaurants, I think it's reasonable to go along with what Deborah has just recommended.
Joaquin, any thoughts on that?
No.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. You know, we also did actually ask, just for the record, we asked the county if instead of $10,000 grants, we could do 5,000 grants so more people can get grants. And they said as part of their process, they didn't want to do that. So, and I agree with it, Harvey. I'm hoping there will be some money coming in, even if we only got a million instead of 2 million. We can certainly reopen this conversation and provide more aid later, because I'm sure people will still need it. And I definitely support adding another 30,000 to get it up to $10,000 grants. In which case, we would need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, before
we didn't do public. Sorry. Yes.
Before you move to any kind of a motion, there is a hand raised.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that. I meant to do that first. Thank you. I think Crystalline has her hand up.
Yes. Crystalline, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so very much. Knowing this wonderful council, I did not think that any arm twisting was going to be needed for this, and the fact that you're even considering upping the amounts just further shows how wonderfully supportive you guys are for the business community, and I just really want to thank everybody, staff and council, for taking this on. When I was speaking to Matthew earlier, you know, the first time the SMC Strong Fund came around, it was, you know, right in the middle of everything, and the city was unable to contribute at that time, and it was very understandable. But the fact that, you know, you've been able to look at your own finances and carve out something for the restaurants and breweries and wineries that have been hit so hard is just a fantastic thing. And I just really applaud and commend you guys for thinking of it and being willing to take it on. And it's just wonderful. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Crystalline. I think we have one more hand up here, which would be Stacy.
Stacy, go ahead.
Thank you. We as a family are so excited about what's happening with the recovery initiative, as well as the funding that you're talking about here to help our current restaurants. One of the things that we're excited about, the potential under the recovery initiative, is raising the visibility to potential future business owners that would be more representative of our community. One of the things that we're hopeful for is that some of the resources that were referred to, either, you know, Councilmember Pemrose's idea of mentoring, retired folks mentoring new business leaders. But I've heard so many creative ideas about co-op farm workers, potentially bringing businesses. We could become a sustainable location for food and other local crafts that are representative of our community here. And those businesses have not been able to start yet. So I don't know what the funding is for the recovery initiative, but those are some of the questions as a community member I have when we think about dedicating monies in this regard over the new ideas that might be coming out of the task force. So thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Stacy. And you know, one of our potential, when you said that, also remind, one of our potential visions is, you know, perhaps having pilots for more of a pedestrian mall in the first 4 blocks of Main Street sometime one day in the future, maybe weekends, if we ever figure that out. And it would be nice to see a bunch of pop-ups, businesses, you know, running down the middle there, different kinds of stands. So yeah, there's lots of possibilities. And I just want to, yeah, Joaquin, then I just have one quick question for Matthew. Matthew, you said, I think you said there were 20 finalists, right? And they would be put into a lottery, is that?
When I talked to the county yesterday, they were pushing 20 either completed applications or partial applications. That number could go up before next Monday. And then yeah, it's just from that group that they would choose.
If we could, if you wouldn't mind, if we, you know, if we could get the name of the businesses that do not get selected in the lottery, just for future reference, because if more money comes in or we decide to make another allotment to help those folks out, it would be nice to know, you know, who's already gone through the system and the process. And
I'm sure they would be willing to give us that information once the process is over.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, thanks. Sorry, Joaquin.
Yes, thinking about Stacy's comment, just want to share with you. There's several people here in the community that have actually approached me with new ideas for new businesses. And having, I know Chrislyn is she still on the meeting. I'd like to see about maybe the Chamber of Commerce offering workshops to do business proposals for new businesses in the community. Because I know among the Latino community, uh, we have been asked from several members that thinking about arts and crafts, about starting a co-op kitchen with some of the delicious traditional dishes from the country of Mexico and in South America. So just wondering about what will be or what will it take to start these workshops here in our community. There's some young community members that are interested in opening a new business. uh, like I said, learning about taking a loan, how to run a business, how to write a business proposal for a loan, having maybe an advice from an attorney. And then I think this will be great, in this time, just to prepare part of the economic recovery for our community. There is some businesses, ideas that having a hard time, to start up, especially from our Latinx, community. It's very difficult. I have personally worked with the local farmer in Half Moon Bay who could not re- get a loan for his farm during COVID, during the pandemic, because he's undocumented. Um, so that's one of the things that part of our community is facing. They don't qualify for federal aid. They don't qualify for specific loans. Just the fact that they're undocumented, but they run in a business. They struggle to survive with the help of family members. They were able to survive. I know there was a lot of help from organizations, like Alas. We really helped this farmer, with marketing. We had actually a young student, a high school student. She believe she graduated high school, who developed, a program to help this farmer, market his product. And his, everything was, we went all over the peninsula. He was in Half Moon Bay. He was in restaurants over the hill in Burlingame, San Mateo, and I believe one of the restaurants did a contract, and the restaurant came all the way from San Jose. When they learned about these farmers struggling, and it was, I mean, a lot of a few businesses came forward, to help, for the family to stay afloat. So so right now that's what we need. We need this education for community. We do need attorneys to help us, educate our community, and I mean, we see it. I see it as a part of COVID recovery. You know, they the ideas for new business are out there. How to start up a business is what's keeping a lot of people from doing so. So no, I'm interested in learning more about it and sharing that with the community.
I think that's an outstanding idea, Joaquin. I see Erica's taken notes, so I know this is going to get before, at the very least, the task force, and the task force will be working with the chamber. So, but we'll just make sure we keep that idea, alive. So as that task force gets set up, I think that's a great idea, and I think the city can then support that any ways they can as well. So, yep.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the chamber does offer some of these services, and Crystalline is still on and available to speak to some of this if you think it's appropriate at this time. They have a small business development center that they run out of the chamber.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Crystalline, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Thank you. So this is exactly what the city helped fund in developing our small business center. So I encourage anybody who is looking to start a business or running into any roadblocks to please send me an email or give us a call, because regardless of chamber membership or not, we're here to help all of the businesses get started. So, or get over the hurdles. And so to Joaquin's point, the gentleman that's having a hard time finding funding, I have resources through the Small Business Development Center in San Francisco that actually has a company up a little bit north from us that specifically works with that type of funding. So I can make connections at the very least to try to help people get where they need to go. And I absolutely am working on those types of classes. We're in the process of setting the classroom up right now.
That's thank you, Chrislyn, and let us know if any other ways we can help in having, making sure there's either bilingual advisors who are available or interpretation services to further facilitate that would be terrific. And thanks for making that hookup in terms of the person who Joaquin is mentioning about with the small business funding. So great.
And Mr. Mayor, I was able to confirm the process for allocation is as I described. Once all of the qualified applications have been vetted, it's a random drawing, so
Okay.
they don't get into who's more qualified or has the strongest needs.
Right. Great. Okay. Thanks for checking that out, Matthew. Okay, I think that's
Mr.
it.
Mayor, if I could maybe make a couple
Please, Bob. Yeah.
on what I've heard that might be helpful. So if there is a desire of the council to increase the amount above what staff has recommended, I think practically you can do that tonight upon a motion and second. You can certainly clarify with Catherine if we could legally adjust the resolution to take that action, but I think you probably could. I think budget-wise or finance-wise, we could absorb the amount that I heard of increasing it from 40 to 70. I would just like to provide a general caution, of course, that these things will be coming fast and furious as they have all year, and the needs are always going to be more than what the city is going to be able to afford. So I just want to remind the council of that. And then finally, like I said, I believe we could absorb, if that's the desire of the council, to go from 40 to 70. We might have to come back at the next meeting and make it official. We are doing our mid-year budget adjustments at the next meeting anyway. So it's possible that to make that official, we would come back after the fact and do that at mid-year. And then the final comment I want to make, I don't know if this is helpful or not. I can't tell exactly what the thinking was, but it was mentioned that it's possible once the federal stimulus package is adopted that there will be money for the city. And we're following that very closely, obviously. And that money is from what we understand about recovery from this pandemic. So we don't know. It's got a moving target. Everyone's following it in the news. But at some point, we anticipate that. The one comment I want to make, so the rules will come with that, what it's for, how we can spend it, et cetera, et cetera. One comment I want to make, though, if typically these types of funds, it's very typical that they do not allow you to supplant money already spent. So I don't know if that was the thinking, but I just wanted to make that point clear. Very typical when you get these kind of funds from the federal and state government that you cannot use the funds to supplant money already spent.
Right.
So with that, I think unless Catherine has some additional comments, I think, yeah, this is something the council could do if that's desired.
And I'll just chime in. I concur with that. The resolution could be adjusted in terms of the amount.
Right. Great. Yeah, I think it's good business for the city to help our small businesses. I don't think, the county's been generous with us with some of that county strong money, even though I don't think we contributed last year. So it's kind of evening the scales there. And yeah, I didn't think we'd get reimbursed if we get some of that money later on, but we will certainly have more to potentially contribute to this. Deborah, are you raising your hand? Or yeah, Deborah, you're still on mute.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that the City Council of Half Moon Bay hereby authorizes a contribution of $70,000 from the City Manager's Office fiscal year 2021 adopted budget to the San Mateo County Restaurant, Brewery, and Winery Relief Program for grants of up to $10,000 each to qualified businesses in the city of Half Moon Bay.
Second.
We have a vote, please. Roll call.
Councilmember Penrose,
Aye.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. So we're now through with our resolution and staff report segment of our meeting, and I'm moving on to commission committee updates. Are there any from council or anyone else on staff?
Mr. Mayor, we do have, I think, 2 reports tonight, both from Matthew on the Park and Rec Commission and also
Okay.
Jill.
Okay, thanks. So does it matter which order we do that?
Matthew, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Bob. And again, thank you, council. I'll make a quick report. The Parks and Rec Commission met last week. It's our second meeting of the year and our second meeting with our new commission. As I mentioned before, we have 3 new commission members. So there's part of the process is bringing those folks up to speed, providing the context that they need to do a good job at their role and think about all the issues and understand how it intersects with other things happening in the city. We think it's going well, really thoughtful discussion and good discussion going on in those meetings. We went very, very late last week, which is uncommon for our Recreation Commission. And we promised them that we'll use lighter agendas in the future to make sure that we can get through what we need to and get people done in a reasonable hour. But good meeting last week. We did our normal updates. I give an update on general city and city council actions so that they have that understanding of what's going on citywide and within the community. Eddie Bealey, our recreation coordinator, provides an update on activities in recreation and some of the things that are changing and happening. And we always talk about the Parks Master Plan and updates to projects related to that. We also have a representative from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec, which is a nonprofit that helps us raise funds for projects and programs. They always attend and make a report. And then our regular items this past week included a discussion of the policy and the MOU that we're working on with the Friends to establish our relationship. If you recall, at a previous council meeting, we discussed that MOU, and direction from your council was to first work on a policy that helps us level the playing field for any of these types of groups we'll work with in the future, and make sure that we're treating everybody fairly and working with them in a way that is best in the best interest of the city and community. Our great city attorney's office drafted a policy. We presented that to the Recreation Commission, and they were very happy with what was included. We also talked about the MOU, and they made some additional recommendations. And so we're making edits, and we'll bring that back to them at their next meeting. We also provided an update on the Carter Park project. As you know from earlier tonight on the consent agenda, you approved a resolution authorizing us to apply for a grant through the Prop 68 statewide Parks Improvement Grant Program. We're really nearing the end of that project. We've continued to push on it even through the pandemic and get through the environmental review and approvals, which are completed. And now our architect and our consultants are finalizing reports and the drawings, and those should be ready in the next month or so. One of the things they'll do is they'll revise the cost estimates, but they've already started working towards it. And all in all, this appears to be about a $6 million project, which for a city like ours, we know is not insignificant. And we believe it will require a variety of funding sources to make it happen, including hopefully a grant or funding from the state, possibly support from the county, local donations from our great community. And that's where the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec really come in and help us to identify those folks and provide opportunities to raise that funding. And then in the end, we'll look at all other options as far as city funding and possible borrowing to pay for this. It's been designed so it can be built in phases, which I think is important. That would allow us to do an initial project to the tune of, I think, $3 million. And that would really set the infrastructure for the park and make it really usable with the seating and the restroom and all the utilities in place. And then you could bring in temporary improvements for the actual performances and activities. And then that would also give us an opportunity to really go after fundraising for specific things like the playground and the stage itself and the performing facilities. That update was, I think, was important because we have so many new commissioners and there's been so many updates that we haven't brought to the commission in a while. And so we were able to do that. We also talked about the community garden project, which was really moving forward quite a bit before the pandemic. It ran into some hiccups at the beginning of the pandemic. And then there's some change of leadership in that group. And so myself and Jill Ekus and Scott from the Community Development Department of the city have re-engaged with the new leadership. And I think we're really on a good track to identify the right location in the city and move that project forward. And the commission is very supportive of continuing to prioritize that and make that happen. We think it'll be really beneficial for the community. And then the final thing we covered last week was just looking at priorities for the commission in the coming year. And as you know, there's so much going on. The initial list was quite long of ideas and things that we could prioritize around parks and recreation and helping people get outside and get healthy and enjoy the fresh air. And as things reopen, being able to have events and other activities for the community. And so there was a process where we talked about what's already in the pipeline as far as stuff that staff is working on and that this council's already prioritized, things that they could work on with the community as a commission, and then things that are probably longer term. And we'll continue that discussion at our next meeting. But I do expect some of them will attend your listening sessions and provide some feedback as well on ways that the city could look at its priorities for the next year and really support recreation and parks here in the community. So all in all, things are going well. Really appreciate our recreation team and all the work that they're doing amidst ever-changing priorities and work. They've really stepped up to help with things like COVID testing and vaccinations and the food distributions. And we're just appreciative of their flexibility and their willingness to serve in any way possible. So any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll turn the time over to Jill.
No questions. Great. Thank you very much for that update, Matthew. Jill, you're up.
Hi, good evening. Nice to see you all. A bit of an update about our Planning Commission. They have started the year very strong. They've already met 4 times, and we are preparing for next week's meeting. The commission has been really a big workload with our own projects, frankly, city ordinances. In fact, we've already had 2 study sessions on the short-term rental ordinance that we wanted to get moving on this year and bring it to council as soon as we can. We are planning a 3rd study session on short-term rentals, and you may have seen some newspaper coverage of the work we've been doing on that. If you have any questions on the short-term rental ordinance, please let me know or let Bob, our city manager, know about that, and we can go into more details about next steps for when it will be coming your way. In addition to that kind of work with coding, there's the kinds of projects that Matthew was already talking about relative to parks as well as infrastructure that come through the Public Works Department through John Batty's shop. All these projects have to get entitled. And so Carter Park, we're doing a little bit of a completion of its entitlement at the upcoming meeting on the 9th of March. There are other infrastructure works going on outside of the city as well, including a sewer line replacement for Granada up in the north end of Miramar. There's a SAM project that we're going to be working on, and CCWD also has a water line project. So all of these are very involved. They require biological resource evaluations, circulations of these reports to Coastal Commission and other permitting agencies, and complete review by, of course, the Planning Commission after the work of your staff and your city attorney's shop. As you know, the city attorney's shop helps us a lot in the work that goes to the Planning Commission. And so we always like to acknowledge how much support we get from Catherine and her team. This coming meeting, we will also be reviewing the Housing Element Annual Progress Report. This is an annual item that council also sees, and you will be seeing it at your very next meeting. Our obligation is to turn it into the State Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st. So that is why you see this report in March, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have when you see that report. This is where we track units, residential dwelling units through really every point of the process. And we'll talk about it more when it's on your agenda and in your staff report for that. And then the thing that has been on my desk all evening while I've enjoyed listening to your meeting tonight is we are preparing for our Measure D allocation confirmation with the Planning Commission. We're going to be bringing that to them in March as soon as it's ready. We have had more applications than available allocations outside of the downtown. We've talked about this with you before last year a couple times, and this is quite a bit of work that the commission needs to do. And whenever the commission has a lot of work, I think you understand that your staff is very busy trying to be prepared to support them with those efforts. So lots going on with your Planning Commission. Of course, we have our one new member, and he had to hit the ground running, and we're just really delighted to be working with them. And we have also had a chance to honor our outgoing commissioner, Brian Holt, and we're really glad that he's nearby and has just offered to always be available to us just to talk, and it's great. And that's the nature of your commissioners. They serve whether they're sitting on the dais or not, and we really appreciate it. So that's my update, and if you have questions, let me know. All right, thank you.
Robert, you're muted, or maybe you froze.
Sorry. Well, Jill, I'm just going to repeat it. Thank you for the update. Greatly appreciated. And then I asked if there's any questions from council members. Sorry about that. And I don't think I see any. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to any agenda items for future discussion this time. Okay. Any city council reports? Okay. Well, it's 9:01. Set a record. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We covered a lot. Did some good work tonight. Appreciate everybody. Thank you for members of the public who attended tonight. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see many of you at our listening session as well. Starting tomorrow night, 6 to 8. Be there. Great. Thanks again.
Thanks to the staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.